It's 7:01, Mr. President.
He who hesitates is last.
Well, I am second to last then. Greetings, everyone, for our December meeting. We usually don't have a December meeting. We have a December holiday party. So, we're missing that, I know, but we've got an excellent program tonight. 3D photography benefiting paleontology. This I got to see. Talk about your stacked focuses. And I don't think we really have anything to discuss on a business level. So let's just have fun. Let's just talk among ourselves. Let's have a presentation. And Beth, you're basically the director of this meeting. So I'll turn it over to you.
Well, I'm not really the director of the meeting. Bob.
Well, yes, you are.
It's a promotion. You've been promoted.
Shellie is a member of WIPS, as you read in the newsletter. And she's also worked with her very closely at the School of Mines Museum project. But she has taken this 3D photography to a really high level. And Bob Johnson is really anxious to learn about it, as is Cork, who presented our program last month. So I'll just turn it over to Bob and Shellie. Do it.
All right, if I'm ready to share my screen. Oh, I can, okay. I think sharing my screen, we didn't do just the desktop. I don't see the desktop, so I'm gonna have to just pick this one, share. All right. This is one of the first 3D models I did. Let me tell you a little bit first about me though. More than 10 years ago, I saw the results of photogrammetry at a WIPS meeting, and I believed then that I saw the next generation of what was going to happen with the study of our physical world. It was incredible and so captivating to me, and I think I was right. I'm an avocational paleontologist. I volunteer at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, at the Colorado School of Mines. In earth sciences, I worked in the fossil prep lab. I did molding and casting, in geology, curating invertebrates, and on and on. And I've been a longtime member, as WIPS said, of the Western Interior Paleontological Society, WIPS. It was at a WIPS monthly meeting that I heard Nefra Matthews and Brent Breithaupt give a presentation on photogrammetry. And it was more in line, what you were talking about, Cord, with the topographic, the land management type of photogrammetry. But they also showed trackways and other things that you could do in 3 dimensions. I was so excited about it. I knew I had to get to it. Then in 2016, that was about 10 years ago, in 2016, they did a workshop. Nefra and Brent did a workshop, and I signed up for that workshop, and we had 2 wonderful days of learning how to do 3D photogrammetry. And once you learn how to do those models, you need to find some place where you can actually show them, where you can have software that on your computer allows you to do what I'm doing now with this ammonite, and that is turn it around and look at it from all the different angles, like when you pick up a specimen and want to take a look at it. And that is a Didymosauros. So Nefra and Brent, who did that presentation, have published several papers on photogrammetry, and they have written the book on how to do this photogrammetric technology, and expanded on that to apply it to studying trackways. And Beth, you were just mentioning that there was a trackway that Nefra had done for you. They've done several of them. This paper that I'm showing you right here is the technical paper that Nefra wrote. It's technical note 428. You can find it on the web. And it's a very wonderful document to explain this. It talks about actually, photogrammetry has been around since the 1930s. And of course, then they did everything manually. They would take these pictures and they would manually put these things together and stitch them together into 3D. And for those of you who came on a little later, Cord was talking about how they actually did stereoscopic pictures of these so that they could enhance and facilitate these creation of their 3D topographic maps. Digital elevation models is what they call them, DEMs. It continued and it became automated, and they have participated in enhancing the software that I actually currently use, and I know that the BLM also uses, it's now called Metashape software, to build these models. So what they have done is, here's the trackway type of thing where they take several photographs and they stitch it together to make this image that shows you actually you can spin those around when they finally get the final model done, but you can see the depth of the track based on those colors. Now that version I don't have. They have the fancy version of that software. So anyway, it was these two, Brent and Nefra, who conducted that workshop back in 2016. It was a workshop that was an advanced program prior to the Association of Materials and Methods in Paleontology annual meeting in Colorado Springs. I signed up for that meeting, and we spent 2 days learning how to take the pictures properly, the focal lengths, the lighting, and had demo versions of the software so that we could actually build our own 3D models. And I was hooked. I knew I wanted to do this. I wanted to get as many specimens as I could because it would be, at the time I was thinking how useful it would be to have a whole array of these models so that when you go out on a field trip and you pick up something, if you want to identify it, it would enhance your ability to identify it if you can see a 3D representation of it. Before I got good at it, though, I saw everything as a potential 3D model. So I was in New York for Thanksgiving shortly after I learned how to do this stuff, and I used my iPhone and I took pictures of this at the American Museum of Natural History. This is the Protoceratops exhibits. There were 3 walls that I could get around. This back wall was blocked off by another exhibit, so I couldn't get to the back side. And there were glass walls in front of everything, so I couldn't get all the details that I wanted, but it still just blew my mind that using this software, I could create this model that I could take a look at virtually this exhibit. I was stunned. I couldn't get over how wonderful it was. Another time that I thought it would be really cool to see if I could do 3D is on a paleontological dig. I volunteered for the Florida Museum of Natural History at their Montbrook site where they have this Miocene dig that's just this 30 foot by 30 foot pit that they're pulling all of this. There are alligators and gomphotheres and bear and turtles and well, anyway, so this is a gomphothere scapula that's in situ. And as a paleontologist, if you've been on any field dig, you know that the documentation of where the bones were in particular when you're digging is important. So having the ability to have a 3D model of how everything was in the ground has to be of some use. Again, I just use my phone to take pictures, and here's the scapula right here. There's the outline. It's missing some chunks there, but that's bone, and there are fragments and everything that they've dug around, and they're still work. They actually shortly after that we capped that off and they got it out, but it seemed like it would be tremendously useful. I also thought that perhaps you could go on virtual geologic field trips. So I was attending a field trip down in Kansas City, and here is this bit of lichens formation that has all this bioturbidity. So this was a chunk of land that has all these bioherms in a location that is not public. It's a private bit of property, and so you could potentially teach folks that way. So oh, and the more note about that is when I was volunteering at the museum for the geology curator, geology curator actually is a curator of invertebrate paleontology as well. James Hagedorn, Dr. James Hagedorn, has a project to try to find a way to determine the Permian-Triassic boundary. There are no biomarkers, but looking at that stratigraphy, this lichens formation was of interest to him. If he could pinpoint which member of the lichens this was. So anyway, that's how I got exposed to that. And then finally, I started focusing a little bit more on, I'm trying to get there we go, on invertebrates. And I don't know if you guys know Steve Jorgensen, but he has a collection to die for. He had access to land in South Dakota, which has some outcrops, Cretaceous outcrops, where he was able to find these incredible specimens. He allowed me to come into his home where he has his collection and make 3D models of many of his specimens. What a thrill it was to get to handle these things and take photographs. And so each of this collection here has 20 models of his specimens. I think I need to ask him if I can come over again, because I know he's got a ton more stuff that could be made into 3D. So now we get to talk about how you create these models. First, I want to say I really appreciate what Bob Johnson put in the December newsletter about the software now available on Microsoft. Windows has some 3D builders and viewers and so on. I've not learned those bits of softwares. I have exported from Metashape and looked at them a bit. I'm really excited that they have those things. I just haven't learned those. I use Metashape, and what you do is you take it, here's the general principle, is you have an object and you take a photo and then you move your camera or you move the object so that the next photograph has about 2/3 of an overlap. And so the software is able to take from this photo and from this photo these points and say these match. And you continue all the way around, making sure you have at least 3 photos that have a particular spot on your specimen, because then it's able to generate the appearance of that model. So that's how that's just a little bit of the logic behind what you do. You take all the photos. What I do then for my small specimens is I have a turntable, and I put my camera on a tripod, I put my specimen on a piece of clay, and I turn it all the way around, taking pictures. And I move the specimen so that I could get another angle of it. I don't use the light box anymore, but I try to get as much light as I can so that I can use as low an ISO as I can. I won't get too technical there. But you want enough light coming off that specimen, and you want the frame to have as much of that specimen be part of that frame so that there are enough points, enough pixels for the software to process. So I'm gonna do a different share of the software. Share. All right, so this, I think I can hide. I didn't want to hide that. I was trying to hide the controls, meeting controls. There we go. So you can see the whole thing. This is Metashape. It used to be called Photoscan. This particular version is still Photoscan. This is an older machine that I don't use anymore. This is that Didymosauros that I first showed you that was on Sketchfab. So for this, I took 164 pictures. And if I scoot this up a little bit, you can see if you, in sequence, you see that I'm basically just spinning that sucker around and till I go all the way around. And if I scroll down a little further, you can see that I've got this one at a different angle than this one. And a little further down, it's another angle. My lighting wasn't great there. I'm kind of messed up. So you take all these pictures. I know now that you don't need to take quite so many pictures. I get away with 90 to 100. And also, you can see that not all of them aligned. So the first step that you do is you tell the software, well, that's not the first step, but you tell it to align. And it will generate, based on these pictures, this point cloud. Point cloud is a common term in 3D modeling. This one has 140,000 points. And this is where it goes beyond my skill in mathematically, because the next step that you do is you select some of those points and then you tell it, okay, now that I've gotten rid of these points that you've told me aren't that great, then recalculate where those cameras should be, those photos are. So what I've turned on now is the camera positions. These camera positions show that I had my camera, this little black line is a perpendicular. So I had my camera right here, and when I get rid of points that it determines mathematically aren't in the right spot, and it recalculates that, there's 3 phases of that, then you have way cleaned up and justified camera positions, so that the next step that you do, and that is to build the dense cloud of points, is much more accurate. So the next step after alignment then is to build this dense cloud. I'm going to pause for just a second and see if there's if I'm doing okay with keeping you going. I haven't lost anybody, have I? All right. So you've got this dense cloud, and what it's going to do then is it's going to take that dense cloud. Let me just zoom in so you can see that that's just all points.
Shellie,
That's just, yeah.
Can I ask a quick question? Would you rather that we hold questions to the end of your presentation, maybe because you'll cover things later, or something?
I'm open to you asking questions at any point.
Okay, so well then one of my questions is, okay, so on a small object like a fossil, that's easy to take gazillions of photographs, but on a big outcrop, presumably like the lichens outcrop, you're not able to get around it. You can't spin it. So what's your rule of thumb for 3-dimensional outcrop photographing?
Well, it depends on how much power you have with your computer. There was another lichens formation up in Golden that I did, and I took a gazillion pictures, like you said, and my machine just couldn't handle it. So you need to pick something reasonable or back up. Back up so that when you capture a face, you get a bigger chunk of the face and you have to take fewer pictures. But for that land, then you would take horizontal rows of pictures, and then you move up and overlap a third from your lower horizontal row of photos and take your row of pictures. So you need to pick and choose what you want to capture or how detailed you want to capture it, because if it's too big, too many photos, then you might not have enough processing power. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. And just one other question. So is there a way to put into these images what the scale of the object being imaged is?
Absolutely. And that's again where I have the standard version of Metashape. It costs a couple $100. The Premier version is like $3,500. And using that scale, then you actually do have precise dimensions of what your land or what your specimen is. You can put in markers, you can put in a scale bar. Let's see. I didn't bring down my scale bar, or that was one of the things that Nefra and Brent did in the class, is they gave us each a very precise tool, scale that had markers on either end of it that this software actually recognizes, so that if you include that in your pictures and you say, here is this dimension, and here it actually has to like the 6th decimal place what that distance is, put that in there, it would know. But I don't have that version.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Gotta raise
Glad,
your
because
pay.
that's something I wish I could do, but I can't. I'm sorry, was someone else?
I said, we're gonna have to raise your pay.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we have this dense cloud then of a model. And what it's going to do next is it's going to basically draw triangles, a whole bunch of triangles between all these points. And that's called building the mesh. So if we take a look at the mesh, this is a very, very dense model. Let's see, I got to look at the wireframe. Here we go. See, you can see all these little triangles, and those triangles, the faces of those triangles represent the slope of the specimen at that point. And the more triangles you have, you would think the finer the final product will be. Well, I've since learned you don't have to have things this dense. 2 reasons. One is if you have it that dense, or why you wouldn't want to do that. If you have it that dense, then putting it up someplace where people could download it from the internet would mean it takes a long time because there's so much data. And the other is that the way the final step is done, where it takes your pictures and it says, okay, that triangle has this appearance, and it knows when it turns what that appearance is going to be. So the last step is to build the texture. And so if I click on this, it takes a little while because it's dense. All right, so it comes up with this texture on top of those triangles, and knows as you turn it what direction that triangle is facing, so it knows this is where it needs to look like. And that's basically it for using Photoscan. I can tell you it took me quite a number of weeks, maybe months, to get this down where I was taking the photos correctly. So let me just show you one of the things that I learned. Let me stop the share for a second, because I'm going to go back to, and I don't know if you have me on speaker view and can see, this is my little Bed Bath & Beyond $9 turntable, Lazy Susan, right? And I have a piece of cardboard on it because it gets dirty from the clay that I use to put the specimens on. So I can replace it though periodically, and I make sure I know dead center. And then on the edges of it, I've got all these little markers so that I know exactly how far to turn, so that I have the right distance in between each of my photos, and I have all the overlap. And then I've got all these this square and the red dot. That red dot's really important to me, because that's where I start and finish. Because you get turned around and say, how far have I gone? So that's that. The other thing I can show you is that for most of the smaller objects that I do, this is the camera I'm using. It is an Olympus. It's an OMD EM1. It's an Olympus Mark I. And it's got this 60 millimeter zoom lens. which is a special lens for this special camera because this camera can do, it has built-in focus stacking. So if I have a small specimen and I want to stack, to get the focus proper, this will do it automatically. So I will set it and it takes 8 pictures, and then the 9th picture, and stores those on the card, but the 9th picture is the composition of those 8 pictures. It's a focus stacked picture. I've not done a whole lot of that focus stacking. Obviously, going through and picking every 9th picture out 100 times is a bit intensive, and I haven't really figured out a way to make that more efficient. But that's that little toy. Let's see. Oh, I've forgot my notes where I am. I got so excited about answering questions.
If I may, how quick does it take those 8 pictures and then stack them? How long does that take?
Just moments. In
Do
the
you hear
camera?
it? You hear the shutter going off quickly?
Yeah, as far as taking the pictures, yeah,
Yeah.
it takes it in just a few seconds. It actually mechanically changes the focus of that lens to take the subsequent images. And then it takes a few moments, several seconds. I never timed it, in order to create that 9th picture.
So all those photographs that we saw in that grid, each one of those was a stacked composite?
Not on that Didymosaurus. That Didymosaurus was probably 10 inches in length, so I didn't need to do the focus stacking. I had a different camera that was far enough back that I had enough depth of field that I could get the whole specimen in focus.
Okay, cool.
Again, it's one of those things that you have to practice quite a bit to know that if I'm doing this object and it's, here it's very shallow depth of field, but here it's very deep depth of field, but this back side of it, the camera can't really see. It's only when it's turned like this that you really need to get like from here forward focused. So it doesn't have to have a perfect, because it's not going to use this particular picture to pick up the texture for this. It waits until it gets it right here. Did that make sense? Yeah. All right, so that's the taking of the pictures. And so I was, let me share that Agisoft one more time real quick. I don't think there it is. All right. So one of the nice things about this, so you can see I've got some photos that didn't align. I actually disabled those myself. So, you don't have to, if it fails to build, you can go say, okay, there must be 1 or 2 pictures that are making it so I can't align all these things. And I just simply disable them and I have success. So there's a whole lot of details of things that you can learn to do to overcome and succeed with the batch of pictures that you've used. I don't have these queued up to show you, but there are a couple of places where there are tutorials on how to do photogrammetry. There's one in particular, a Dinosaur Paleo has a blog on WordPress.com. I will send Robert these, I assume you call him Bob Johnson, all of the links that I have. But this tutorial, his description on how to use this software is spot on. It really is good. I've not looked at a lot of his other stuff about how you take the pictures and so on, but his on how to use Agisoft is fabulous. And then there is one other place that I can send that has some good reference information. All right, so let me go back to my Chrome. So I've learned how to do it. I found out about it. I did a workshop. I practiced and spent some, when I said months, I was working full time. So it's my hobby. I was learning how to do it and getting better and better at taking the pictures and learning how to do it. I still have things that don't work out quite right. For example, If something is too flat, Agisoft has a hard time creating models of something that's too flat. If it's too shiny, and I know a lot of gems are very shiny, because of the way the light reflects off the surface, and that light doesn't move while the object is turning, it says, I don't want to use that part where the light is. So it ends up not being able to build a model of something shiny. Translucent objects are also very difficult to create models. So I don't do a lot of those. I've got a couple of shiny things, it has some nacre on it, but there was enough other detail there that Agisoft, the Metashape software, was able to create a 3D model from that. So again, when I started doing this, I kept having in my mind that what I wanted to do was to create a library of invertebrate fossils that represented the Western interior, because that's where we go look for fossils, and it would help people identify things. And I wanted good specimens that had good provenance, because that's, you really want to know the age, where did it come from, what's the formation, and so on and so forth. And I made acquaintance with the folks at the USGS who curated the fossils there at the Denver Federal Center. And they allowed me to come in, and I was able to get 79 models of those objects there. Of many of them were Bill Cobbin collected specimens. Many of them were in publications. There were a few casts that I did because they were type specimens, but I was just getting as many in as I could. I mean, it takes some time to get set up, to find the specimen, to collect the data, to take the photos, and then bring them back and build it and get them up where they can be seen. So I didn't get as many as done as I would have liked. Plus, the Smithsonian, who, as being part of the Department of the Interior, actually were the, I don't know what the right term is, but they were the ones responsible for these fossils. I picked this time whatever time to move this whole collection from the USGS back east to Maryland. And that makes sense. I know that some of you know Dr. Kirk Johnson was at the Denver Museum. They tried to get it so that the Denver Museum could curate these fossils. They couldn't get the funding. And so I did come up, make contact with some folks at the Smithsonian, and sign an agreement with them that allowed me to continue doing photogrammetry of some of these specimens. But by then they were starting to move things out. I got another 76 models done, and they've allowed me to leave these here so that they're available for people to look at. The Smithsonian has their own 3D program where they're developing their own rendering software, and they're capturing the models, and they're using, $25,000 laser scanner equipment to do this kind of stuff. They had funding, I don't know. But part of the reason I bring that up is that I'm still able to create these models that give you just exactly the representation you need three-dimensionally. So if you want to identify a specimen. Another place where it was of use is at the Denver Museum. I offered to create models for folks there, and started working with Rick Wicker, the photographer at the Denver Museum, trying to build a 3D photo scanning lab. Dr. Tyler Leeson, vertebrate curator, a vertebrate paleontologist there, had me create several models. Some of those models ended up on the Denver Museum Sketchfab account. You can see here they've have these, there were more done, but these are all that got uploaded. And the point of having these here is that these are models that I created, they were used as models on the Rise of the Mammals website. So there are 4 models here of mammal skulls that were found at Corral Bluffs. I think that probably many of you are aware of what was going on down in Corral Bluffs. That was outside of Colorado Springs. But it's a site where the first mammals after the Cretaceous Paleogene extinction were found. I mean, it's an extensive cache of specimens that are like nowhere else on Earth, and a really exciting find. So if you scroll down, here's Tiniolabus that I created the model of. They actually sent these models to some of their colleagues at other institutions so that they could do comparison studies with anything that they might have, further discussions. So I'm kind of proud of that one myself. Let's see, checking my time. Oh, so I was going to talk about Sketchfab a little bit. So let me get my other share going here. So all of the models that I've been showing you are on a website called Sketchfab. Anyone can create a login for free, have an account on Sketchfab. You're limited now to how many models you can upload for free. They have different levels of membership, but what they have more than 4 million users, and many of them are gamers. You know, they're creating 3D models for virtual reality and 3D games and so on. There are a lot of museums and institutions of learning who are using this platform to store this. It's like having your model in the cloud and then available on the internet so anyone can look at them. You don't have to have an account to go search Sketchfab and look at the models. Some of the things that you can do, here's the other lichens formation I was talking about. That this is up in Golden. And one of the things that you can do is you can add notations. This is the Falcon member, and that's the Forel member. I got to go on a tour with Dr. Hagedorn up there for that. It's behind their general maintenance, some new facility that they have up there for general maintenance for, I don't know if it's county or what, I don't remember. But so Debbie, you were asking about, this was, I don't know, it was the whole side of the building. So it's at least 60 feet, you know, from here to here. And I had taken pictures all the way around a corner here and all the way up this way. And this was the most important part. So I cut out a lot of those pictures because my computer just simply couldn't do any more than that. And this is from the gully up to this. This was a lot of plant life up here. So I left that out. So another thing that this is not my model that I'm going to show you next. Another thing that you can do on Sketchfab, this is a fantasy I have, is being able to take one of these ammonites and make it move. You know, so you can create 3D models that have animation. Just a couple of more things to show you, kind of to show off a little bit, I guess. James Hagedorn and Dr. Bob Reynolds are working on this Colorado stratigraphy. I don't know if you're aware of this, but one of the things that they've done is they've connected to some of my models on this chart to show some of the type specimens that were at the USGS. For example, Baculites compressus. Here's this model that comes up through a link on their chart. You can link to these things in Facebook and so on and so forth. There's just so many things that you could do with these models to learn about. The Cretaceous Atlas of Ancient Life has some of my models on it to demonstrate what these things are. It's just a tremendously useful tool for documenting and using as reference tools for the study that we do in the earth sciences. Let's see, what is this?
Just for jollies, is there a way that you know of to put these into a file that so you could use a 3D printer to make models?
Absolutely.
Do
In
you
fact,
have that software?
well, the models actually on Sketchfab, some of my models are for sale. Sketchfab's only been around for like 5 or 6 years. And what they do is they want you to create a store, because a lot of these people are doing this, like Pleurodon. This guy has it for sale for $50. And if you pay for it, you can download it to do just exactly what you're talking about. A lot of people will use it to put into whatever software they're doing, but there will be people who will take other things to actually do 3D printing. I don't have a printer. I've never tried it. The software actually, the Metashape software actually has a function to export to specifically Sketchfab. Let me show you that. So here's Metashape again, or Photoshop. You can upload data to, well, I don't even know what point box or point scene are, but here's the one to Sketchfab, and you can upload the model with all its description. And that's how I got my models up there. What they end up being from Metashape is the .obj, I think you would call it wavefront, that particular format. I don't know that much about printing. I think that is one of the formats that they take, but you can export these, export model into all these different formats, OBJ, DS,
STL.
Yeah, STL.
I think the STL is what's used by the 3D printer, at least.
Right.
The MakerBot we've got. So that's what I need to know.
Yeah. Yep. I like I said, I don't print. I don't need another dust collector.
Well, I have a 3D printer at the STEM lab over at the Air Museum, and it would just be nice to, I presumably could make my own 3D models here. Why not? And then print them out over there and just have some fun.
Yeah. One of the things that I understand might be true from this is this. I can't even remember the right terms for it. Might have some holes in it. I don't remember. Do you know what you call it if you've got an object that you're trying to print and it's got a surface that it's not going to be able to complete because the vertices aren't complete?
Oh yeah. Well, they routinely. You can have it build up so that if you have something that is kind of hanging over the side like this, it'll just build up something from below to hold that. And then on the inside of it, it's usually more or less honeycombed to save a lot of material and make it relatively strong.
But that animate might be hard to construct.
Yeah, getting that to print, that could be interesting. I guess if you did it this direction, it wouldn't be.
Yeah, that would do. And it would have these little things on the bottom that you just have to kind of break off and then smooth things down.
Sand it down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really pretty much my presentation.
Hey,
I could go back and.
This is George Daggett. If I could ask a question, does the museum now have an investment in a 3D Photoshop?
They have one license of Metashape. They have the professional version that Michelle Coons got years ago, and she transferred it to Rick so that we could use it. We had only just started. We just got the machine put together, and we're starting to capture some things that aren't out to public yet. And then COVID hit, The other thing that they are doing there, though, is they have a 3D digitization lab. This is a little branch off from photogrammetry, but they're doing CT scans of specimens, and they use this Dragonfly software to, like if they've got a skull that's in matrix, they do a CT scan and they use a software to mark this is where something is different than the matrix, and I think that's bone, and they end up making this three-dimensional object of the unprepared fossil, so they don't have to prepare it before they study the actual bones. That's their digitization lab now. So that's kind of where their focus is. Now they did have some vendors come in to show them, demonstrate some laser scanners, the handheld devices that you could hold over an object that have the software that would generate the 3D model as you're holding it. I don't know that they ever got anything in.
Well, I mean, I was doing my volunteer work at the Denver Museum was in the photo lab and doing photo stacking for the Fern project. And it was the Fern project that drove a grant to acquire the stacking equipment. But our next project was going to be a crocodile from Madagascar. And so you've got all these little pieces, and it's almost as though something that's 3D like that, a two-dimensional standard photo stacking apparatus is almost, I wouldn't say obsolete, but this 3D modeling is so much more telling.
Yeah, I feel the same way, that 3D is so much more telling. I mean, you go in the field and you pick up an object. What do the first thing you do? You turn it around to look at it every which way to get the right perspective on it.
Well, the ferns worked okay because that's fairly two-dimensional.
Yeah.
But for the Madagascar work, yeah, we need to go 3D.
Yeah. And like I said, it took a little bit of practice. Of course, I didn't know anything about a camera, how to manually set the ISO and the f-stop and all that kind of stuff. And I practiced and so on. So that was where a large part of my learning curve was. Because like I showed you, the very first thing was the American Museum Protoceratops that I did it with my iPhone. It's anybody who has some passion and a little bit of them can figure out how to do this, and we could continue to grow this base of reference material, or just share how you can see these things and learn about them. So cool. I'm excited about it. I just think it's just and I've been doing it for 4 years. I still build a model and I go, wow, when it builds. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
What is the typical size in, let's say, megabytes of one of these pictures, say, of an ammonite or something like that? The whole 3D thing.
Wow. I haven't looked at that in a while. Let me see this. I'm looking at my own desktop at the moment. Well, let me just share this. Go back to share, and I'll share this. So this is the folder that contains the model, and in it, here are all the pictures. And I actually have 2 versions of it, one that didn't work right. I don't think I have, like I said, this isn't the machine I use anymore, so I don't have the stuff on here that shows me the size of the model. I'd have to go download one or go upstairs. I apologize, I don't know, but it's 50, 100 megabytes.
Okay.
And it depends, like this one would be large because it had so many pictures, and if I go look at the dense cloud, dense cloud. Oh, I'm not. Yeah, you're not looking at that. You're looking at a different share. And then I closed it. Where did it go? There we go. I'm not showing my screen. I'm just taking a look at the dense cloud of that thing had 6 million points. So, they can be large or smaller now that I know that when you want to look at a model on the web, You know, looking at this, you want it to be able to spin really fast, so you make it smaller. Oh, I forgot about this. Here's a fun thing on Sketchfab. They actually did a blog of women on Sketchfab, and they asked me to do an article where I wrote about the stuff I was doing. And if you want to, I forgot about this. So this is one I did recently. Just kind of wanted to show you. I don't know if you can see, I have in my hand, if you see my video, this particular shell is the size of this model that I'm showing on my screen right now. I'm sharing with you. I don't have it where I can, I'm logged in as me, so I can't download it readily. So to show you the size of it, I'd have to get back Cork on the size of it.
Okay, shoot me a note sometime if you think of it.
All right. So you can look at all my models on sketchfab.com/paleogirl. That's the name I chose for myself on Sketchfab. Any questions?
Shellie, how have your sales on Sketchfab gone?
I haven't sold hardly anything.
And what would somebody do with one after they buy it? Except maybe 3D print it.
They would print it. They would print it. They sometimes use it for, like I said, games. There are people who are building games where they incorporate them into a scene, you know, like if they're doing some prehistoric game sort of things. I do have to say, thank you, Roseanne, that I have been contacted. There was a teacher, I'd have to go look, I think in Budapest or Hungary or something, who said, I'm teaching American students at this and you have this ammonite that's in this document, this publication we're reading. How can I get a copy of that? And I turned it on so that he could download it so they could print it for their class.
And now that you know what you're doing, how long does it take to process one of your models?
So I take the pictures, I put them in there. There's another step I didn't tell you about, and that you take a picture, and I'll just share one more time the photo scan. You take this picture and you mask off everything that you don't want to 3D. So there are some tools within Photoscan Metashape that facilitate this masking. So if I turn off this mask, you can see there's the full picture, and I've said only use this part of this picture for part of the model. So that takes some time to clean this up. I have learned that you don't have to get so close to the edge anymore because it's smart enough to figure some things out. Then I set it to align and I walk away. You know, alignment takes, depending on how many pictures you have, like now I'm doing 90 to 100 pictures, an hour. But again, if I align, I could say, I really want you to pick up as many points as you can, or just, you know, not so much. It varies quite a bit. So the alignment and the building of the dense cloud are the longest. The building of the mesh and the texture are the shortest. I would say it averages a couple of 3 hours of processing time. But like I said, I don't sit and watch it.
Masking 100 pictures, how long does that take you?
Well, so I don't know if I have this is one of my earliest models from 4 years ago, so I don't know what I have. What you can do is import a mask, and so you could take a picture and say apply it. Well, let's just see. I'm going to say import a mask and to this photo. Here's a background. Okay, let's just do this. I'm answering your question live here by processing. Okay, so what it did is I have a picture of just the turntable and the cushion the specimen was sitting on, and I said use that to kind of figure out. So now you see that I have all this debris on the that I can get rid of. So then I can say invert and add to that mask. Now I've got it, and then I want to put that back in, subtract, and that's as far as I have to go. That was one picture, 30 seconds, a minute. But when you got 100 minutes, you could take some time. I have tried to get away with doing less masking, and sometimes I'm successful and sometimes I'm not. So if I set it to I try to skimp on the masking and I align and it works, great. If it doesn't, then I sit down and I go through and I spend a little more time masking.
Cool. And are there any associations or organizations that you consult on that do this sort of thing?
Nope.
Nobody. Wow.
There used to be a meetup. There's a fellow named Jack Woods who I can't remember now. He's worked contract for like the National Park Service and some other things. I think he's landed a permanent position with some government entity, but I don't know what it is. He and Nefer Matthews had set up a meetup, and we met for a little while, and there were some others who were interested, but they ran out of steam and time, and that has gone by the wayside. There is a photogrammetric group on Facebook. I haven't really, looked at that a whole lot to know what goes on there. Some of the people are way more sophisticated than I am. Some of them not so much. So I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook, so I don't really know. I really don't know of any other organizations. I'm unaware of them.
And are there other
Shall we start with?
competitors to Sketchfab? Do you know anybody else doing this?
There are a couple of other platforms. I honestly can't remember what they are. I looked at them. They didn't seem as sophisticated as Sketchfab. The one didn't seem useful to me at all. The other one was probably fairly comparable, but I was already embedded into Sketchfab and didn't find it useful to go there. It had some aspects that seemed a little more primitive. I can show you a little bit more about what Sketchfab does. Let's see. New share, this guy. So did I pick the wrong thing? Yeah, I did. New share, mammals. Okay, so if I go to, let's go back to the Ditty, to my own profile, it has this aspect of organization where you can do collections. I've set up to do this store, but you can see there's these followers. So if I can go into that, you start to learn some of the other folks who are doing the very same thing as you, or not. Some of these people are doing heads. Doing people is really quite difficult because they don't sit very still. Other different science efforts, and then the ones who are doing, they're doing Blender, ZBrush, a lot of different tools. Mesh Lab are other tools that they're using. So this kind of has a social network of its own on Sketchfab.
I just
But
see
it-
so many cool applications, like with so many people doing remote learning now. It'd be
Oh,
so
yeah.
fabulous when you can't get your hands on it. And we were talking about the Brazil museum that burned down, and the only thing they have left is their digital models that they had done. And they're,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, this is Debbie again. And so this is a question, not just for Shellie, but maybe for anybody. It seems that it's remote things, for instance, trying to sell minerals or fossils or whatever on the internet. This, if it weren't too time consuming, this seems like, it'd be a wonderful thing, since you can't pick the specimen up and look at it because you're not, there aren't shows and things. So I don't know, does anybody know any of our colleagues, friendly local mineral peddlers that are using something like this?
Well, I mean, do you have to have the software to look at the model?
No, you could go right from where you're sitting and go to sketchfab.com
You
and look at these
create it,
things.
But you create it, but we can all look at it.
Correct. You can all look at it.
Yeah, I don't know, Debbie, that meteorites?
Yeah. Well, yeah, maybe, but I'm thinking more of these beautiful, clusters of minerals where I don't see how anybody could buy one without looking at it, but people are. Yeah. I mean, well, there's an example right there, where, but something even maybe more complicated, like some of the stuff from Sweet Home, where you've got fluorite and rhodochrosite and calcium, blah, blah, blah.
I think most mineral dealers are just doing videos where they,
Okay.
hold
Well,
the specimen and rotate it around and just post it as a YouTube video.
yeah,
or
well,
whatever.
that's probably simpler. Okay, thanks, Pete.
Quicker.
A little bit quicker. Yeah.
Shelley,
I guess in the interest of time, you could do a lower level model that would still come up with pretty decent detail, in an hour or so. Notice on this one, Cord, that this one is a free download. So there are a lot of models out on Sketchfab that are free downloads. Creative Commons licensing, you have to attribute them to the creator. So you could figure out what those sorts of things are. I was just looking to see minerals, like here's aragonite. This is Digital Atlas of Ancient Life, the ones that have some of my ammonites on their site. And they've got this as a free download too. But yeah, to your point, that's what you want to be able to do when you look at a specimen, to see if that's really what you would want to buy. Because if the back of it has, scraped off or broken, it's not as interesting. Oh, and note too that down below a model, and all mine have a description. Mine always have as much data as I have provenance data of where it came from and its age and so on. The Paleontological Research Institute, yeah, that's up in Ithaca. So.
And Shelley, your final product, it is photogrammetric, so you can take measurements off the model.
There again, I'm using the standard version that I don't know how accurate it is from mine.
Okay.
I often will use scale bars in my photos should I have the chance to build them with the version that I know can allow you to do what you just asked. I don't know if you can take mine now, because it depends on it reading that information from the EXIF of the photo from the camera to know the exact dimension of the sensor and the pixel size and yada yada to figure out those scales. I don't know if you can with the version I am using,
Okay.
but you certainly can with the Metashape professional version.
Bob, you gonna get the Metashape professional version then?
I don't think so.
Come on. It's your passion.
I mean, it's a lot less. It's less than the $16,000 handheld digital scanners you can get.
See, it's a bargain.
Yeah. Special, what do they call it? Magic Friday or something like that price.
Yes.
Black Friday.
Black Friday price.
That now they do have discounts for those who are at educational institutions. They've discontinued considering museums educational institutions. I know because the Denver Museum tried to get another license and they said, no, no, no. But if you have that association, like Dr. Emmett Evanoff at University of Colorado, I don't know. He was able to get a copy for $500 of the professional version. So
They have a version for the insane asylum.
well, that's the one I'm using.
Okay. Alice's old place.
It might be an educational version.
So you can go in, like them. You know, you could search through. Oh, so another thing I do is I'll put in gastropod. I tag them so that when people are doing searches, they can find gastropods. Apparently, the Digital Atlas of Ancient Life is also doing a lot of gastropod tagging, or at least their names are, so that people can find them. That's what you'd want to do, is put the right words in there to find. Oh, they're selling theirs for $10. Whoa. You can, so once you upload a model, let me see, I got to find, what have I got here? Let me just pick a model. Pick a model, any model. Let's do this one. All right, so you've uploaded it and you want to edit the properties. So this is where you have the description, your tags here. So it helps you, encourages you to make it more discoverable. You can edit the 3D settings. You are all seeing this, right? I'm sharing the right thing?
Yes.
Okay. So once you get the model up here, then you can change the lighting. This is one that, oh, it's off. So I turn the light on and see, I've kind of got it blown out now because it's so bright. You can, for each of these lights, change the direction, brightness, shadowing. You could change the background so that the light changes on how it appears. That's kind of funky. Some of my older stuff, I left these deals. You can make it a solid background. You can change the orientation a little bit. I have a basic membership on there, so I have a little bit more facility of uploading and making it so that people can't download. I had to be able to do that for the Smithsonian pieces because I can't sell them, and you can't upload but 10 models or something like that, or you can't upload any if you're not going to sell them or make them free downloads. On the free version. I think that's right. You know, they keep changing it, so I don't know what it is now. So I'm changing this. Lots of things you could do that I rarely do with things I don't even know. You know, subsurface scattering has to do with things that have a little more translucence, opacity. You know, there's a lot of aspects to how things appear visually that I use very little because I'm doing the physical real world, not the game type of stuff. I gotta move this thing. So let me exit this.
I would encourage everybody to log into Sketchfab and try it out.
You don't have to log in, just go there.
Yeah. Shellie, have you use the VR function? Can you tell us what it takes to use that?
You actually have to have the goggles to see the things in virtual reality. So here, this is something that Sketchfab automatically does. I don't have the software on my machine, but what it would generate is what it would take to look at this in your virtual reality headset.
But do you need,
So-
can you just use a phone and one of those inexpensive
Absolutely.
headset things?
Yep, absolutely. As long as you got the VR software, what is it that it takes? It says, I don't know. I've not tried it,
Okay,
so I don't know.
I'll have to try it.
I can't imagine it takes any software because it generates everything for you. It just, maybe there is some add-in. I don't know. One other thing I want to show you that you can use Sketchfab to see is this model inspector where you can actually look at the wireframe. And this is something more interesting to people who want to do the printing is looking at the wireframe to see if there's any holes. One of my favorites is this normals. So looking at the wireframe, you've got all these triangles, and if you kind of mark where that is, and I turn on the vertex normals, you see, this line indicates the perpendicular, it is perpendicular to the surface of that face, vertex, and that's onto which the texture is applied. And if you go inside, you can see I've got some faces that are upside down, but it doesn't affect the overall image because when you go back to the final render, the texture is applied and appropriately, so it looks like you want it to look. This must be a cast. It doesn't say it is. Huh. Anyway, the UV checker, you got X, Y, in 2 dimensions, and then you've got this texture that's like a piece of paper that's applied to the surface, and so they call it UV, which is next in line from XY, for the mapping of the texture onto the surface. That's kind of fun to play with.
Well, thank you so much. What's next for you?
Just continuing. I still have a backlog of stuff. I have borrowed things. I have bought them at auctions or found my own things if they're good specimens. I still got a stack of stuff I wanna capture. And then who knows what will happen is now. So what would be nice is on the that stratigraphic chart that Dr. Hagedorn and Bob Reynolds are doing. They want more index fossils on there from Colorado, and the USGS stuff has gone to Maryland, so I don't have access to that stuff. So if anybody has any good specimens of Cretaceous cephalopods or bivalves that they'd like to let me borrow, I'd be happy to come and take some photos. That's what I got.
Thank you.
Check out sketchfab.com/paleogirl. Thanks, Beth. It's been my pleasure to talk to you guys.
Oh, it's great.
And if you guys want to get started in something like that, feel free to contact me because I think this is a valuable tool, and it'd be nice to have a buildup of a really decent library of Western interior specimens, whether they be fossils or minerals.
Well, it sounds like fun.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
been
you very
really a
much.
pleasure,
You're very
Shellie,
welcome.
having you with us tonight. It's great. It's it's scientific, it's artistic, it's mechanical, it's intuitive. So, you know, after 4 years that you've put into it, you've really shared with us a good degree of comfort and expertise. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Excellent presentation skills.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
And we'll be turning to Robert Johnson from now on as well for technical support. So.
And he'll be sending us his GoFundMe page.
Right.
No, that was really great.